I love when I'm watching a movie and a random Star Wars reference just gets thrown in there. I usually notice right away and I react just like I found Waldo after hours of hunting. Like that one there. Star Wars references and non-Star Wars projects have become so common that sometimes I feel like people don't realize just how big of an impact Star Wars has on all other types of media. But of all the Star Wars references, gags, cutaways, these are my all-time favorite, and we are about to count them down in the top 10 best Star Wars references in other movies and TV. What is up, everybody? My name is Matt, often called Big Nerdy. Together we are the NWO, the Nerd World Order, and this is Nerdzoic. I started this channel during COVID because the world was crazy and I wanted to kind of forget about all that stuff and just talk about nerdy stuff and think about nerdy stuff, read comics, play with action figures, and that's where Nerdzoic came from. But I gotta tell you, none of this would have happened without Star Wars. Star Wars has had a huge influence on me. I mean, hell, my kid's name is Luke Skywalker, and no, I don't know how I talked my wife into that. I tend to think of myself as the Han Solo of my own story.
If anybody's anybody, I'm Han, and you're Chewbacca.
Yeah, you're probably right. I'm more of a Chewbacca based solely on body hair. This is going to be such a fun video, and I hope you enjoy watching it as much as I have enjoyed making it. Now, if you come across something in here you actually haven't seen, it's worth a view. Literally, everything referenced in this video is worth going out and watching if you've never seen it before. As you probably know, the list of Star Wars references and other media is enormous, and this is in no way an exhaustive list. Instead, this countdown is focused on the funniest and most clever references, according to me.
Hey, Chewbacca, take it easy, will you?
I do need to say up front that I'm not going to talk about movies that are 100% based on Star Wars. So we're not going to talk about anything from Spaceballs or Fanboys or even the Family Guy Star Wars trilogy. Those aren't references, kids. Those are more of an homage to Star Wars and would literally take the entire video over. And that should in no way be an insult to them.
Don't you dare badmouth Star Wars! That was all accurate!
I'm also not going to mention brief Easter eggs, like the C-3PO R2-D2 hieroglyphic scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark, or the random Force ghosts at the end of Happy Gilmore, or even the many carefully placed nods at Star Wars in E.T., which was created at a time that Star Wars was at its peak of relevance. I'm also not going to mention anything from the Big Bang Theory, because there's probably 1,000 million zillion examples I can do, and producer Tom has an irrational hatred for the show. All that out of the way, let's go to number 10. Coming in at number 10 is Austin Powers. Now, admittedly, the Star Wars references in Austin Powers are pretty small, but they have always been one of my favorite references because they're so cleverly done. If you haven't seen the Austin Powers movies, by the way, finish this video and then go watch them all. You might be able to skip the third one, but the first two are required. Now, there are a couple references in there, like there's the entire scene where Dr. Evil tells Austin that he's his father, but he can't back it up, and that's funny, but nothing is better than the Alan Parsons Project. We're not talking about the Alan Parsons Project band, no. We're talking about the time that Dr. Evil puts a giant laser on the moon. You see,
I've turned the moon into what I like to call a Death Star.
I laugh every time at that. It's clever the way they're able to use time travel as a device for not knowing what Star Wars is, and it's just funny, and it's not the only movie to do that. Is that foreshadowing for number 9? Coming in at number 9 is Back to the Future. This movie came out 2 years after Return of the Jedi hit theaters. At the time, Star Wars was still a gigantic part of meta pop culture. Much like the clever reference in Austin Powers, Marty's traveling back in time. He has seen Star Wars, but everybody else hasn't. So when he mentions Star Wars, no one knows what the hell he's talking about. At one point, while in the past, he tells his dad that he is Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan. Without any context, Marty just made a mortal sin. He combined sci-fi franchises. It's like a bad meme. That's not it though. Marty has to actually appear as Darth Vader, and he does so by dressing in a radiation suit and wielding a hairdryer. Lightsaber, hairdryer, slightly different. Coming in at number 8 is The Simpsons. The Simpsons is considered the greatest cartoon, maybe the greatest show of all time, and it's going to be at 750 episodes by the end of next year. Despite being iconic in its own right, The Simpsons love referencing Star Wars, like Homer spoiling Empire Strikes Back.
Who'd have thought Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father?
Or the time Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker himself, made a guest appearance. You see, there was a fan convention in town and Mark Hamill was there as a guest. A riot soon breaks out and Homer saves Mark Hamill from being torn apart. Homer later becomes becomes a bodyguard because of this. Later, Hamill tells Homer to use the forks while in a fight with a local mobster. One of my favorite all-time callbacks though is Treehouse of Horror 10, which features comic book guy using a Darth Maul lightsaber in a fight. Unfortunately, he does get distracted though when he's told that it is no longer valuable because it has been removed from the original packaging. There's a ton of other examples, but to me, these are the best. Coming in at number 7 is Robot Chicken. Now this might seem like it's against the rules, and it kind of might be, but you know, it's a sketch cartoon, it's okay. I've long been a fan of Robot Chicken. It's based on the old Toy Fair Twisted Theaters, and it's more than just a spiritual successor. If you haven't seen it, one of their favorite things to do is to take scenes from Star Wars and make changes, I guess you could say. For example, the scene where Darth Vader tells Luke that he is his father. Well, he doesn't just stop there. To Luke's annoyance, he also tells him that the Empire is going to be defeated by Ewoks. As a child, he built C-3PO. As you can imagine, Luke is skeptical, which just shows you how outlandish some Star Wars stories are, but the final straw comes when Luke gets irritated and walks off as Darth Vader tries to explain to him about midichlorians.
And the Force? Well, that's just microscopic bacteria in your bloodstream called midichlorian.
Look, if you're not going to take this seriously, I'm out.
Then, of course, there's the Admiral Akbar cereal commercial, loaded with imitation crab meat and brine shrimp. And I just love that the Cantina Band is there pitching a song they wrote for the Akbar fish sticks commercial.
Akbar's fish sticks from the sea, they cook so tender and flaky.
All the Emperor jokes, though, they are probably the best. Like him getting the idea to use bounty hunters from his hairdresser, or his flight to the second Death Star that led to his luggage getting lost, or getting distracted by the ongoing construction at the second Death Star while trying to seduce Luke to the dark side, or when he gets into an argument with the construction worker when he asks him to keep it down, or my personal favorite, when he asks what the hell an aluminum falcon is.
What the hell is an aluminum falcon?
Coming in at number 6 is the Chappelles Show with the Jedi Temple scandal. This one is not PG, so don't go back and watch it with your kids without reviewing it first. I'll try to keep it as clean as I can for the purposes of this video though. This comes out during the Catholic priest scandal, and that is what it's based on. What ends up happening is that Chappelle exposes a Jedi sex scandal within the Jedi Council. This leads to Yoda giving a press conference to deny allegations, which is about as funny as it sounds. Later in the skit, a secret tape is revealed of Yoda giving Qui-Gon a transfer to escape allegations. And then there's Vader giving an anonymous interview where he reveals that the Emperor assaulted him. If you don't got kids around and you don't get offended easy, go check this out. It was pretty freaking funny. Coming in at number 5 is Family Guy. Specifically, the entire series, but the Star Wars trilogy episodes. So we can't count those, but that doesn't mean that we can't talk about all the other Star Wars stuff in Family Guy. Because you see, Star Wars references were in Family Guy long before those specials were made. It shows that Seth MacFarlane and his writers are pretty big fans. There are too many instances to reference them all, from little nods like Peter having a collection of Burger King Empire Strikes Back glasses from the 80s, to like full-on monologues, like the time that Brian explains how Peter's new inheritance money changed him, and he compares it to how Lando Calrissian changed when he gave up Han Solo in Empire Strikes Back. There are so many more great references, but in fairness, what doesn't Family Guy reference?
That'll be $27.50.
Coming in at number 4, we have the MCU. And honestly, that's mostly just Spider-Man, with the only exception being the part in the Captain America Winter Soldier movie where you see him making a list of movies to watch that he missed when he was frozen. In Captain America Civil War, Spider-Man is devising a plan to take out Giant Man, and he references that really old movie, The Empire Strikes Back, as a way to use the tow cables to kind of wrap it around Giant Man and trip him up, but it wasn't tow cables. But he does pretty much recreate the scene where the snow speeders tie up the AT-AT and make it fall. Then there's little nods, like in Spider-Man Homecoming, which is the first Spider-Man movie in the trilogy for Marvel. Him and Ned build a Death Star Lego together, but it's then destroyed at the end of the movie, kind of like A New Hope. Then in No Way Home, which is the third movie of the Spider-Man trilogy, the Death Star is rebuilt like the second Death Star. And then if you look in Peter's bedroom, he's got some vehicles, he's got an AT-AT, he's got an X-Wing, yeah, he's a regular nerd. Coming in at number 3 is Parks and Rec, specifically the Filibuster episode. This episode includes a guest starring Patton Oswalt, and he gives us his idea of how episode 7 should start at a town meeting where he has to perform a filibuster. He ends up merging the MCU and Star Wars universes together, and it sounds like some silly fanfiction, but let's be honest, that would probably be better than a lot of the sequel trilogy. He begins his rant so into it too. His camera pans down on Sarlacc pit. Boba Fett's hand emerges. And someone at Disney must have been paying attention, because this is the exact way the first episode of Book of Boba Fett starts. Coming in at number 2 is Saturday Night Live. Yeah, you see what I did there? There are 2 skits that are just all-time hilarious for me. First, there's the time that Kylo Ren goes undercover boss on Starkiller Base. It is freaking hilarious. He poses as a radar technician named Matt. He sees how difficult the job is for like average Imperial First Order dudes. At one point, he chokes out a stormtrooper after that stormtrooper calls Kylo Ren a
female dog.
My favorite part though is where he apologizes to an officer by making them a greeting card for killing their son. But the epitome of Star Wars on SNL was the Star Wars toy commercial. It features a bunch of adult collectors who of course keep their toys in the original packaging. One collector says he buys 3, 1 to open, 1 to keep, and 1 just in case. This is perhaps one of the most relatable SNL skits ever, especially the ending where a kid asks an adult collector if his wife likes toys too, and then the sad Force theme starts and the guy's just like, oh, I am so lonely. Alright folks, we're near the end. Let's head to number 1. Coming in at number 1 is Clerks, and honestly the entire View Askew-universe. So the View Askew-universe, say that 10 times fast, is Kevin Smith's universe that all of his movies take place in. And there is pretty much a Star Wars reference in every Kevin Smith movie. Whether it's the Return of the Jedi versus Return of the King debate in Clerks 2, or the Mando cameo in Clerks 3, Silent Bob using the Force in Mallrats, the dissing of Lando Calrissian in Chasing Amy, or the club scene in Dogma. He uses Star Wars references so awesomely. Now there's quite a few other examples, but one stands out above them all. Of course I'm talking about the original Clerks and the conversation between Dante and Randall. Basically, they were having a discussion about the ethics of blowing up the second Death Star. The theory was that the second Death Star was still under construction, therefore since it was such a big project, they probably had to get outside contractors who weren't even part of the Empire, and those people would have died, whereas the first Death Star was just evil Imperial, so who cares? To be honest, that is a fair ethical conundrum.
All those innocent contractors brought in to do the job were killed. Casualties of a war they had nothing to do with.
I love all of these references, I love all of these movies, and I love Star Wars. If you want the details on that though of what it is about Star Wars that makes me love it so much, check out this video here that I put out back on May the 4th be with you that explains my love of Star Wars. And remember, you gotta get old but you don't have to grow up. Just be cool and stay nerdy. Later.